Good morning and welcome to the daily chapter reading of It's Your Loss, the Book of Grief. How do you find community when you've built your emotional walls so high? If you want to talk to people but find yourself climbing up when you try, write down what you want to say, even if it's just a few words, and take that with you to read from. If you're really struggling, write down what you're feeling or needing in a letter. Then give it to somebody and let them know that you've written it because you're struggling to ask for help in person. The right people will understand, and sometimes even just writing the letter can help you understand yourself better. Dr. Sheetal says, "You don't have to go through loss alone. I find it quite upsetting when people tell me that they don't want to be the person that brings down the mood with their sadness. Why the hell not? You're the one hurting. The least people can do is listen. If you want emotional support from others who are going through the same thing, try a group who are actively grieving. The purpose is not to add to your emotional burden, but to feel like your emotions belong in the world and are unquestionably normal. On the other hand, be terribly helpful as they are going through their own hell. People actively experiencing loss and circumnavigating that before they can possibly contemplate sharing their findings with anyone else. If they haven't worked it out yet, how can they help you? Just being sad and emotional together and navigating this with someone means a burden shared, even if it doesn't immediately seem to change anything. We are all deserving of support. Imagine if Debbie has a great, understanding support system that really gets her and gives her what she needs in terms of emotional support, space, distraction, in all the right quantities and at the right time. But Raj is isolated, has few friends, and a family that don't understand. Do you think that Raj doesn't deserve the same support Debbie has? I hope not. Just because Raj was dealt a different style of support branch in life doesn't mean that he should suffer more. And that's where, for me, therapists can be invaluable. We also come in when people don't feel comfortable talking to those they know or feel like they will be judged. Seeking help from strangers can feel daunting, and that's normal. We know this and try to put you at ease as much as we can. We want to help, not disarm you or make you feel uncomfortable in any way. We create space where you may have struggled to, and we don't rush anything. One of the most valuable sessions I have earned in bereavement is that grief is bespoke, different for everyone, and that a one-size-fits-all approach is sometimes unhelpful because if your experience does not fit the pattern, you might think you were doing it wrong. So I welcome conversations about loss, all sorts of loss, because they help to map a varied and unpredictable landscape rather than tell you what you should be doing. The wide world. The world is full of things that have sprung from loss. From films to art and back through poetry, there are ways to use these things to help you get through loss. Robin. I find a massive comfort in knowing people can repackage loss and create something remarkable, because then it has a purpose in the world. I feel seen and less alone. Emma. Whereas I don't want to feel seen and I want to be alone. Robin. Yeah, your love is a tiny, complex poem. Emma on the wide world. An intrepid exploration of all the world has to offer a mourning introvert. I say mourning because when you lose anything, there's a period of shock, miscellaneous emotions, adjustment, and reconciliation to go through. Whether you misplace a hat or your best person dies, it's all somewhere on the same spectrum, and you'll do it on your own personal way. If you're somebody who likes to spend a lot of time on their own, for example, loss presents its own challenges, because people, lovely people, will want to rally around you and make it all better, when what you really need is space and a time to process what's happened. But then, if you're anything like me, and you're alone, maybe the emotions are difficult to get to. Maybe you organize your sock drawer into alphabetical color order, make a paper mache friend for the cat, and mow your neighbor's lawn instead of letting the actual feelings happen. Because the truth is that loss is complicated. You might do all the distractions, you might want to feel sad, but can't quite get there. If you've been boxing up what's inside your whole life, Often what's in there gets all jammed up and impossible to reach. Sometimes when I'm emotionally constipated like this, Robin will tell me to put on a playlist of sad songs and have a good old cry, and I'll look puzzled and change the subject. Because that is categorically not how I work. The idea of being able to look outside of myself to process loss or let something else influence my emotions feels alien and weird and gives me that cross feeling you get when you just smashed your favorite mug. And likewise, Robin finds it unfathomable that I don't want to bathe myself in the bubbling waters of music and poems and movies about loss, because she feels seen by them. I just feel annoyed. If you're an introvert who needs space and a time to process loss alone, having loss reflected back at you through culture can feel invasive, make you angry, and cause you to isolate, which means you run the risk of being an island. Loss Island, the saddest place in the world. But contrary to what my inner voice has been telling me my whole life, there are ways for us introverts to take what the world has to offer and use it to help us reset and focus, access those emotions, and help ourselves take another step on the long road to understanding our losses. And yes, it might seem out of character for an introvert to look outside themselves for processing tools. I was surprised to find out I even had any, but I do. Where Robin looks for the disgusting euphoria or of loss in culture, I'm about surrounding myself with the quiet little moments of emotional indulgence that let me drop the facade of everything being fine, even if only for myself, and admit that sometimes I'm really not okay. Wailing and gnashing of teeth. Some people love having big emotions, love them, revel in them, want to roll around the floor in glitter made of them, love any movie that makes them feel things, weep uncontrollably to sad songs, and flail dramatically when they read a maudlin poem. Me, not so much. I like having emotions, sure. They let me know that I'm a functioning human, but I like to have them quietly, by myself, and then to think about what it all means for a bit. So, for me, anything that tries to access my emotions without my prior consent, whether that's a schmaltzy movie or a loved one, feels like an invasion, and is similarly shut down. Nobody stonewalls emotional crying quite like an introvert. You might recognize the squirmy feeling that happens when somebody starts talking about something you don't want to give away. A little bit flustered, a little bit irritated, and a little bit like a stray dog backed into a corner. Those some things are yours. They are precious. Maybe they're the only part of you that feels like it's really your own. So it stands to reason that the idea of trying to force out those emotions with something from the outside world will feel like a hideous imposition. In which case, what can introverts do with everything in the world through a loss? Well, it turns out quite a lot. From art to the great outdoors and back again, we can seek out the emotional duvet that the world has to offer and swaddle ourselves in it, in micro moments that help to stop us spontaneously combusting. I'll level with you. At the staring line of writing of this chapter, I'd have said that I do not use culture to help me through loss. Nature, yes. Alone time, yes. Culture, no. No, no. But it turns out, actually, I do, just not in quite the full immersion grief veil way Robin craves. And if you don't recognize yourself in that model of grieving, neither this bit's for you. The thing about loss is that, for lots of us, it's highly personal, very private, and not for anybody else's mucky hands to touch. And as established in the previous chapter, it can be easy to believe or even want to go through it all alone. So to pick up a book about somebody else's great loss feels like we're not giving our own adequate attention, like that loss is competing with our own, which is largely unhelpful and likely to make a person throw the book on the metaphorical fire. Both, and everything in between, are valid. At one end of the scale, Robin uses art and poetry to feel seen, connected, and anchored in the world, while I, at the other end, use it in entirely the opposite way. It turns out, I use it to spirit myself away to another place. And an emotional plane that acts as a gateway to the real me. Who knew? A cursory glance around my home offers some clues as to the me I'm trying to get to. The paintings of a distant, lonely figure standing on the edge of a cliff in melancholic blues and grays. The portrait of a sad horse you'd swear was about to shed a tear. The art I've chosen to hang around me and desolate. But when I look at those pictures, I feel a sense of comfort, of belonging, a feeling that's peculiar only to me. And I think therein lays the nugget of gold. Where some will use culture as a way to feel connected to others and reassured by the passing of similar experiences, others might use it as a secret slice of emotional pie best enjoyed alone. What I've learned is that while Robin uses culture to fuel a feeling of community and connection, I use it to get in touch with myself. We really are a predictable pair. Because we introverts need to retreat to process, it's unlikely you'll find us weeping in a crowd gallery or tearing at our clothes at a Saturday matinee. What we're more likely to be doing is spending time by ourselves in nature, going for long, windy walks, or being cocooned away at home in the quiet where we can unfurl and do a bit of healing. And it's in those places and genuine solitude that we can find ourselves surrounded with little touch points that reflect our insides back at us. And though I didn't realize it, finding those things is something I've been doing since childhood. Be your own sad donkey. It's telling that the character I've always related to most in Winnie the Pooh is Eeyore. That morose donkey with self-esteem issues just speaks to my sensibilities, and is maybe why I harbor a secret desire to open a donkey sanctuary in my later years. The solitary misery, the outsider status, and almost comic emotional inertia is classic Emma territory. Not to mention we both have nail-on tails. This quote from the house at Pooh Corner pretty much perfectly sums it up. Eeyore's sad and annoyed because nobody stops around to talk to him when a rabbit bounds on by. It's your fault, Eeyore. You've never been to see any of us. You just stay here in this one corner of the forest waiting for the others to come to you. Why don't you go to them? And sometimes, much as I hate to admit it, that damn rabbit is right. Sometimes it takes a children's story character to point out what you most need to see. But all characters come from somewhere, and perhaps Eeyore was a Milanese way of communicating some of his own darker side. That's a pretty literal example of seeing yourself reflected in culture, but I do think there's something in those characters we've introduced to as children, because my other early memory of feeling emotionally connected to culture was Dumbo. The misfit baby elephant separated from his mother and taught the ways of the world by a happy-go-lucky mouse. I'm gonna acknowledge here that adult me understands the shamefully racist overtones of that early Disney film and fully condemns the dehumanization and caricaturing of black people in it. It's not a film I'd be showing to any kids now. As a 4-year-old sitting on an ugly lotus sofa with my mom, who I lived away from, though, the main character's story was all my own pain on screen. We'd watch it and we'd have a little cry together, probably one of the only times we did cry together, and we'd feel the pain of loving each other so much and having to say goodbye. And oh man, when Dumbo's mom cradles him through the bars of her jail and has to let him go, it's probably one of the saddest moments I can think of in cinema, because it connected precisely with my experiences that tiny me never really communicate externally but felt so vividly inside. That early loss of my mom, viewed through the prism of a cartoon elephant, framed a lot of my feelings about loss through my life. Loss felt privately, painfully, and in small moments nobody else got to touch. Maybe it was the incomparable sadness of Disney. Maybe it was me putting all my mom's sadness in the lockbox. But there came a point where I stopped wanting to look at things that connected me with those feelings. And if you've built like me, maybe you'll felt this too. When you're engaged in a 24/7 struggle to keep the lid on your emotional Tupperware, the absolute last thing you want is to sit down and have it reflected back at you in your spare time. So I went into nature, and honestly, if you're struggling with a loss and want to find a place you can feel some things with freedom, I urge you to do the same. I went into nature. Sounds like I sold all my worldly goods and wandered into the woods in a loincloth made of leaves, but I really just mean going outside. Taking train trips to wild places and brooding scenery that matches how you feel inside. There's something about standing at the top of a very big hill looking out at the sea when you're sad that just feels very, very right. It's the outdoors equivalent of Robin's books of poetry, a place beaten by storms and weathered by weather, a vast and unending wilderness of complex things going on beneath the surface. It reminds us how small we are and how big the world is, and can separate us from general life enough to process some of what's going on. Maybe for you, it'll be a calm meadow that helps you find peace in loss. Maybe dark, mulchy woodland matches your temperament. They're all excellent. And for those of us who crave alone time to piece ourselves back to Ritter, nature's an incredible way of not only doing that, but of finding yourself outside of yourself as well. We introverts may not want to connect with people much through our losses, but we can still find ways to connect with the world. Find your blanket. In amongst all the emotions and confusion and month-old sweatpants of loss, it can feel like you're supposed to be doing certain things, spending time in certain ways, or reading certain books. And I'm here to tell you that you don't have to, except this one. Because I think there's a pressure to accept the people that the help that lovely people want to give you in whatever form it comes. To work your way through the meditation app, even though you hate it. To watch the really great documentary that helped your best friend when all you want to do is stare at a wall. To go for a big walk because a book about loss told you to. But the truth is, it's about feeling your own way through it all and letting people help you, yes, but not people pleasing your way into letting them guide you down their own path. Sometimes it's okay to take the recommendation and not action it, so long as you can find your outlet or comfort blanket somewhere you're doing okay. And it might take a while before you do. I'm still discovering things about my own reaction to loss, and that kind of fills me with wonder and hope that there are still better things to come. Your wide world may not be made up of all-consuming representation of grief, but it might give you access to some of those difficult-to-reach moments. The loss equivalent of teleportation. When you're so busy being anchored in the world that your reaction to loss escapes you, these things can help you get it back. They provide a little moment of solitude in which you can feel safe to be enveloped in grief for whatever you've lost. Boo-hoo. It's the power of taking time, even for a moment, to focus on feeling, thinking it through, self-examine. Or, if that seems like too much right now, to even just let yourself feel the feeling. Knowing I can do that now and not crumble into dust has been an unbelievably empowering part of my own journey through loss, another little brick in my own emotional house, and I hope a heck of a lot that it happens for you too. This book is the little piece of culture that Robin and I are putting back out into the world, and my hope is that it helps somebody like me who made myself so invisible in my own loss to feel connected to their emotional selves. Because it's real easy to distract and twiddle and lose sight of your needs, but when you get back to them, that's when the healing begins.